Hi, I'm Fred P, and you're watching Point Blank TV.
So today we are joined by Fred P, aka Black Jazz Consortium. We are working on a project with Fred at the moment, a remix competition. So we're going to be chatting a little bit more about that later. But first up, Fred is going to be talking through some of his songwriting and production techniques. How you doing?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Oh, it's so nice to have you here. Thank you for taking the time out.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
So you've just flown in from Berlin this morning. You've come straight here to meet us. And later tonight you are playing at Oval Space with Move D.
Yes, the legendary Move D.
Wicked. So do you have any kind of like go-to tracks, like anything that's you're almost certainly going to play tonight?
Well, I do have one track in particular that I would like to play.
Can we hear it?
Oh, sure.
Slap it on. Is it a Fred P banger?
It could be. Actually comes from an EP I did last year called Recoded.
And is this out on your own label?
Yes, it's out on Soul People Music. And I'm hoping to find the moment to play this one.
So what time of the night would you normally play this record? Because you're playing at like 5 o'clock or something.
Yeah, that's right, about from 5 to 8. So this would be somewhere near 7 o'clock, in my opinion. But who knows, it could happen sooner.
Nice. And have you played with Move D before?
Yes, I have. Yeah, we've played together a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Today or tonight would be the first time in a few months. Last time we were in South Africa.
Yeah.
Which was an amazing, surreal experience.
You're from New York, but now you live in Berlin, is that right?
That's right.
So what prompted that move to Europe? Was it the music scene there, or?
It really wasn't a plan. The thing is, I was touring a lot at the time.
Yeah.
And I found myself spending more time in Europe than New York, so it just made sense.
So I know that you were a fan of that whole broken beat sound that was coming out of West London in the late 90s, and you have a residency in London at the Pickle Factory. What's your relationship like with UK dance music, and what do you think about the scene here?
I love UK dance music. I mean, it's very influential. I used to listen to For Hero, IG Culture, the whole G-Force crew, and they gave me a lot of food for thought when I was getting back into production back then. Mm-hmm. And how does that translate into now? I have a very open mind towards my approach in playing music as well as production based on those things, because I still play a lot of that music now. Yeah. And I find that the scene here in London is very open to honest expression. So when the moment is right and everyone connects with a particular song, it's an amazing experience.
When you started production, your sound was purely analog, and then you transitioned over to digital and Ableton Live. And what prompted that decision, and how do you think that that's affected your sound?
Traveling. Actually, because I needed a solution for not being in the studio. So
did you put it off for some time? You're like, digital.
I totally did, actually, because I wanted to actually go back to tape, but it just wasn't possible. When I started touring, I needed to complete projects and like do remixes and stuff like that. It was just a lot simpler to learn Ableton and do my work on the road and finish it at home. Yeah. And that's how that happened. How it has changed what I do now has made me a lot quicker. I can move a lot faster.
Well, that's a good thing.
Totally. I bring what I knew from the analog world into the digital world, and they both kind of cross and make something new.
So when it comes to making music, how important are ideas and like the mood and feeling of a track versus the actual kind of technical production qualities?
In my opinion, I think the technical aspect should be first. Like you get really good at a thing, instrument, whatever. So you're able to capture moods and intention. I'd rather just be able to express whatever it is in the moment, and that can only come from not having to think about what I'm using. I don't know, in a roundabout way of answering that, I would say it's more about mood, because really that's all we're doing when we make music is capturing moments and special moments.
And your music in particular is really, it's quite moody and deep and emotional at times. That's what I think when I listen to it.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. That's a huge compliment, because really all I'm trying to do is just capture what is happening in the moment and just relate in a way that makes sense to everyone else.
Yeah. And what about your current studio setup? Is it in your living room?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a combination of analog and digital, just various synths, and Ableton is my main DAW, and I use plugins in combination with samples and things that I record from outside of the box into the box. And then it's all left up to the process of mixing and processing and so on, which is done in the box. So yeah, it's kind of a hybrid analog digital situation.
Do you have like any favorite bits of kit that you use in most tracks?
To be quite honest, I like the TB3 a lot, the Roland TB3 and System 1. I've been using those a lot, creating tones for like pads and stuff like that. Have an analog 4 that I use quite a bit as well. Right now, that's kind of what I've been using lately.
And so you've been really busy lately. You're launching a new label called Private Society and working on a whole bunch of new tracks. Should we open up Ableton and have a look at one of your more recent productions?
Sure, absolutely.
Cool. Has this one got a name?
Yes, this one is called Room 416.
Okay, where did that name come from?
Well, it's based on the idea of when I'm traveling, if I'm inspired, I have my laptop with me. I try to make something that I might be able to play the night of the gig.
Okay.
So it comes from that inspiration.
So you can just like bosh out a whole track in one night?
Sometimes. In this case, this is based on that idea. Okay. So that's why it's called Room 416. It was kind of a more percussive thing. Relatively simple. It was meant to be like a DJ tool that kind of grew into something a little bit more groovy, like a repetitive melodic thing. The kick is the Roland TI-8. I'll play a sequence into it and then just record each piece into Ableton. I just simply recorded a 4/4 from there, built with the hat. Again, 4/4, relatively simple. I think the more free-flowing piece would be the snare, which is kind of a solo. I just go a little bit crazy with it.
Is this how you start most of your tracks, with the drums? Or does it vary?
It varies. In this particular case, it was more about, just getting kind of a groove going. So I start, building from the very basic kick drum and then snare, clap, hat, and little vocal stab. And that kind of forms the groove. And then I wasn't gonna go past that, but then started messing with the System 1, and I played a chord into it and just started to filter it out a little bit, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice. Added that and then played a little electric piano over the top of those chords, and that got the ball rolling into a whole different direction.
Do you have like the grounding in music theory, or are you just kind of making it up as you go along?
Totally making it up as I go along. I mean, the thing is, music theory is great, and I think one day I probably will eventually learn it, but I like the idea of discovery, because usually you find things you weren't looking for.
So do you just play keys and see what they sound like? Or do you, have an understanding of some basic chords?
I do have an understanding of some basic chords, but I'm usually looking for what isn't there, like whatever I've heard before, okay, can I do it a little bit different? Can I make it sound this way, that way? And it's not something I'm consciously going after. I'm just kind of just being open to it, and when it happens, great, wonderful. That's the thing I was looking for.
Could you maybe solo the chords on this track and we can have a little listen? Is there much processing on those?
A little bit. Yeah, that's system 1 filtered, and then I put a flanger on it.
Mm-hmm.
So flanger, a little bit of side chain compression, and it just gives it this kind of dark, pulsating feeling.
And are you using the Ableton plugins? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have many third-party plugins that you use?
Well, usually when I'm at home, I use UAD plugins, a lot of wave stuff. For this particular piece, it was mainly Ableton plugins.
Okay. And what about your bass line?
That was also out of the System 1. The initial bass stab is out of System 1, and then I used sub bass out of Ableton for like a ghost note.
Could we have a little listen to those?
Sure. Bass stab is really simple.
So it's just the one note throughout?
Just the one note throughout to kind of like follow the kick.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a sub ghost note under that.
Oh yeah, that's really subby.
Which basically follows the first bass stab. And those are basically like groove elements to me. It's not meant to be like melodic, it just reinforces the groove that's already there.
Mm-hmm. And what about processing on those?
Just a little light compression on the initial bass stab, and then I just use volume for the sub.
Okay. And there's a few kind of, is it vocal snippets that you've used as kind of like percussive elements? Or?
Pretty much, yeah.
I just guessed that.
This is a good guess. Yeah, really, it's just like half a second of me saying something, and then a little bit of delay on it to give it a rhythmic aspect.
So do you use your own voice in all your productions?
Sometimes. Most of the time, I'm grabbing samples from records or other sound sources.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever worked with other singers?
Totally. I work with Christina Whaler a lot, and another artist named Monaco, who's practically appeared on every album I've done.
Okay, and how does that work in the studio? Are they writing the lyrics and the melody, or do you have an input on that?
It depends, honestly, because in some cases they hear the music and are inspired to do something that's natural to them, or I might have a request for them to do something specific. Most of the time I ask them to sing what they hear. And
so back to your little vocal here, you've got a delay on it?
Yes, there's just a simple delay. It's just meant to keep time and be syncopated to the groove.
And in terms of arrangement, like, do you have a kind of arrangement formula that you stick to, like, like a club track formula, or do you record things on the fly, or how does that process work for you?
Arranging something like this, it's repetitive. So depending on how long it is, let's say it's 5.5 minutes, it's the same thing for 5.5 minutes. How do you make that interesting? And it's just continually dropping in elements, taking elements out in certain key places, accentuating stuff, combining certain elements, and then taking everything out, let the track breathe, bring everything back. It all depends, but you do that a lot throughout a 5-minute period, so it never gets tiresome. That's usually my approach to something that's highly repetitive. Now, in something more musical, where there's a beginning, middle, and end, then not so much, because you're constantly refreshing with every different phase of the song.
Yeah. And so I think a little further along in the track, is there like another layer of chords or something that happens?
There is a solo that I did on System 1 that isn't really processed that much at all, because there's just maybe a little side chain compression done to it.
And do you do a few takes and then kind of like piece piece things together, or it's just one go?
No, that was actually one take.
Really?
Yeah, I was kind of in the zone. I was really feeling it because I'm thinking, you know, I'm on the road, I'm in a hotel room, and yeah, this is the moment. This is what's in the moment. And usually when that happens, it's a one-take situation.
Okay, cool. And so do you have any tips for up-and-coming like bedroom producers, you know, like ways of getting their productions to the next level? Maybe some things that you've learned along the way?
I would say know your gear and be consistent, because practice anything, you get good at it, but the thing is to stick with it. In the very beginning for me, my first music wasn't great, and I just kept going because it was more about how I felt about making music, period. And then eventually became music that I could present to people, and then it became music that people were looking for. So it's like, before that, I was pretty much like earning my stripes working for other people, doing demos for other people,
Cool.
and developing a sound based on what other people wanted to hear from me for their work. That's a good way to develop a prowess in the studio and be able to have your mind open to other ideas. So that gives you a wide breadth of techniques.
Yeah.
Once you reach a level where you can do that for pretty much anyone, then you can do anything you have in your own mind for yourself.
Is there anything in particular that you sometimes struggle with?
I think the limitation is time, because there's so many hours in a day, there's so many days in a month, there's so many months in a year, and if you have products attached to all of these ideas, there's but so much you can put into that. So you have to find creative ways to get it all out in a space that makes sense.
And especially if you're touring and traveling, I mean, that gets extra tricky, doesn't it?
Totally.
Yeah. And so what about back to this track here? Can you talk us through your mixing process on this? Is mixing something you do mostly as you go, or do you kind of allocate a big chunk of time at the end to do like a proper mix down? Or
I kind of do it as I go, because I'm always thinking in terms of like a pre-master. In most cases, I'm operating somewhere between -12 and -6 dBs for my master out. So if I'm keeping that in mind the whole way through, I'm dealing mostly with volume. Mm-hmm. So if I deal mostly with volume, there's but so much processing I need to do. And if anything I need to accentuate, I can, and it will seem dramatic, but it could be something as simple as a delay, a little bit of reverb, or something like that. If I'm getting like really freaky with the processing, then that might require a little bit of compression here and there, but usually it's all volume, because if you would go back into like, let's say like the 60s, 70s, wasn't a tremendous amount of processing happening back then. Most things were done with volume, and those are some of the most amazing sounding records on the planet.
Yeah. And so do you, once you've finished a track, do you bounce yourself like a basic master and play it in the clubs before you send it off to get professionally mastered?
When I have the opportunity to, I do. Either during sound check or during the night. And I've done that quite a bit.
So this track, it's coming out on your new label called Private Society.
Yes.
And we are going to be doing a remix competition, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Very exciting. Guys, this track is part of a project we've been working on. We're launching a Fred P remix competition very soon, and the winning remix will be released on Fred's new label on vinyl. Head to Plugged In for more info, or click on one of the links in this video. Don't forget to head to our website, pointblankmusicschool.com, where you can find out more about our courses. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.